Tough man. This is a guy who's highly opinionated. Usually I don't like opinionated people, but I always like this sincere one. Thanks to President Erdogan of Turkey. He's always there when I need him. He's such a tough guy. He is tough as you can be, but we love him. And when they have a problem with you, they always call me to handle it. And usually I come through. We just have a good relationship, and we have from the beginning. Of mine. And we've worked very well together. I like him a lot. I'm not supposed to say that because the press will say, oh, he likes Erdogan. No, he's a hell of a leader.
Well, Trump really, really loves Turkey's dictator, Erdogan. Do you know why? 5 reasons, okay? A, Operation Gladio B, and Turkey being the headquarters of the Operation Gladio B since 1991. 2, but of course, Israel. 3, it has to do with Epstein's Balkans and Turkiye network, and I'm going to explain all this. 4, Jared Kushner. And 5, the quest for global fascism. These are the 5 reasons, okay? Now, Gladio B. If you were to go and research Gladio B anywhere on the internet, you will see through multiple sources that I was the first person, the only person exposing Operation Gladio B, which started in 1991 with headquarters in Turkey. And I exposed it around 2004, 2005 as a part of my case, my state secrets privilege case as an FBI whistleblower, and all the congressional testimonies, 9/11, etc., and multiple gag orders as a result. Operation Gladio, the original Operation Gladio, started right after World War II. This was the common name for it is NATO's stay-behind armies, paramilitary. The better description would be using terrorism and false flag operations and blame it on, of course, the communists, the Soviet Union. Well, after the fall of the Soviet Union, okay, they changed tactic, okay? Same types of operations, but this time, instead, okay, it was misusing, distorting, utilizing religion, in this particular case, Islam, Muslims, right, to operate for terrors, okay, and this would be false flag terrorism. 9/11 is a great example of this, and continue what they started with Operation Gladio originally, okay, which is the same thing, control, okay, and establishing an empire, all right, against competitors, adversaries, China, Russia. And why Turkey? Because of its strategic location, okay, geographic location, and also because Turkey being a member of NATO, all right, and most importantly, Turkey being controlled by the United States, and especially since 1996 by Israel, okay? Now, ISIS was created in Turkey. Okay, most people think, oh, this is Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, and Iraq, but no. In 2012, and I will show you this on the screen, if I'll be able to execute it. In 2012, 2013, again, I exposed ISIS as Gladio B operations being formed, okay, in Turkey, including using the US Air Base in Adana, in Incirlik, Turkey. This was, let me see, now we have this individual, Joe Kant, who 13 years after on the record, okay, I will put the links on Patreon. You will see various podcasts, you will see articles on ISIS, Sibel Edmonds, okay, one of the first targets being Syria, 2013. 13 years later, they have made it a headline, right? There is this government official whistleblower calling ISIS as what the United States, right, together with NATO, via proxy nation, Turkiye, which he omits it very conveniently, created and has trained, armed, financed, and dictated the targets, the terror operations, the false flag terror operations. Again, those of you interested in these topics, I will delve again, and I have been delving deeply into these topics through my site, patreon.com/Sibel Edmonds. And the tactic being what? False flag terror operations. In Turkey, right, they, under Erdogan's government, some may want to call it more aptly regime, these recruited jihadists, who were not to start with jihadists, and these would be various regions, people, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Central Asia, Chechnya, right? Then they were brought into Turkey, as they had done in the past against the Soviet Union under Operation Gladio A, the original Operation Gladio. And in Turkey, they trained them, commando training, use of arms. Some of the training taking place in the U.S. Air Base in Turkey, arming them, and then with missions, the terror operations determined and given by the United States, Israel, NATO, and then sent globally to places, into places where they would execute these, okay? But the hub, the headquarters being Turkey. Now, in September, it would be, to be exact, September 2025, okay? And it would be September 25th, 2025, Erdogan came to the United States, and he and Trump had a 1.5 hour meeting behind closed doors, a very important meeting in the White House. And you can go check on this. And also my previous videos exposing what took place. During this meeting, Trump gave Erdogan a list of orders, okay? A list of orders and a timeline that he wanted Erdogan, right, to implement these dictated orders. And when we say Trump gave these orders, Israel dictates Trump, Trump gives the orders. So logically, rationally, we are going to combine the two. When we are saying Trump, this is Trump, US deep state, and including Israel, forming, right, creating these orders lists. Now, also at the same time, Donald Trump told Erdogan about all these various blackmail files that the United States with documents has against against Erdogan and his cronies, right, and his administration, including the Halkbank case, Reza Zarrab case, Erdogan's partnership, Erdogan's government's arrangement, that's a better maybe term, with Maduro in Venezuela for cocaine business, Turkey's a lot of documents, including Turkey being currently in that part of the world, Europe, Middle East, right? The number one country. Again, I will include the links. These are not from me. These are from all the various official organizations all over Europe, including the US Justice Department's own reports, right? Documented reports. Number one country for child sex trafficking. number one country in that part of the world, Middle East, Europe, including the Balkans, child sex trafficking, organ trafficking, for being a narcotic hub, right? We're not talking about the Americas. We are talking about that part of the world. Illegal arms sales, right? For the and also I included the money laundering. So Turkey is a hub. In fact, a recent report, again, I will have this at Patreon. Anybody who wants to see this documented information being issued, these reports by major organizations, you're more than welcome to check it out at Patreon. Recent article said Turkey is the number one safe haven in the world. And this is issued by Interpol and two other organizations together after they finished their statistics and reports. Number one, world's number one safe haven for all the top most wanted, they call it Red Bulletin, most wanted criminals, notorious criminals, most wanted by Interpol. Okay, these are the operatives, most wanted operatives involved in narcotics, right? Heroin, cocaine, in child sex trafficking, in illegal organ trafficking, child organ trafficking, money laundering, number one in the world. All these wanted people, right? If they want to evade capture and spend billions of dollars they have obtained via these illegal operations, the number one safe haven for them is Turkey. Number two is in the UAE, specifically Dubai. So Turkey holds that position. And Interpol, FBI, they all have all these stuff documented. Anyhow, Trump told Erdogan, these are the things we have on you. You do as we say, immediately start implementing these orders. You'll be our good boy and we love you. Okay? This is why we started this video documenting only maybe 4 or 5 out of the 15, 20 times Donald Trump going on the record saying Erdogan is his favorite leader in the world. He is that also Trump is going on the record and saying no matter what we are asking him, he's doing it. I really, really thank Erdogan. I'm so thankful to him. No matter what I tell him, what I ask him to do, he does it. And he has done it and he has delivered. He has delivered on Syria, ISIS, right? So we're going to get more details, again, not in this video, in the next videos. So with that and showing the blackmail files, Erdogan has been non-stop, right, implementing these orders. And these orders are not for the interest of the people of the United States, because we are governed in the United States by a cabal, criminal cabal, whether it's pedophiles with pedophilic network, right? They are, and it has been already proven. Warmongering, human rights violator. We are the number one right now around the world with what we do with impunity. So don't think of it as orders, a list of orders that benefits the United States of America as it relates to the people or the national interest of the US. No, no, no. We are talking about dark operations of the US deep state, including Israel, right? Terrorism, narcotics, money laundering, okay? And the list goes on, okay? False flag operations. These are the orders he gave Erdogan. And since that date, September 25th, 2025, Trump has been every couple of weeks, every few weeks, has been publicly going on the record and thanking Erdogan for being a good pet, okay? Serving the deep state in their dark operations and objectives, okay? All right. So, Gladio B, reason one. And one of the orders Trump gave Erdogan was during Biden administration, Operation Gladio B's headquarters activities got reduced, okay? There are times where the activities peak, false flag operations, etc. And then there are time periods. Sometimes it is per order, the order by the deep state. Sometimes it's the global circumstances. We had COVID stuff, right? And that Trump, what the first thing he had on his list was Operation Gladio B. We are going to amp it up. Well, how do they amp it up? They have to amp it up through Turkey. Turkey is the ground for these operations. That's one. Two, basically one and two, in many ways, they go hand in hand. Israel, number two reason, okay? Now, we know that the Shiraz terrorist Al-Qaeda ISIS leader was handpicked by Israel and the United States, okay? He's a terrorist, he's a known terrorist. And it was via Turkey's direct operations and doings that we are seeing, a Syria without Assad and with Shiraz, a terrorist, leading it. Similarly, even though people in the West, they don't hear about it, since the United States invaded Iraq, northern Iraq, we balkanized Iraq, northern Iraq, Kurdish region, central Iraq, Sunni region, and southern Iraq, which is made of Shia population mostly in Iraq. Well, since our invasion starting in 2005, northern Iraq was handed over to Israel. Israel has military and intelligence bases in northern Iraq, and they have co-opted, recruited various Kurdish factions and organizations such as PJK and PKK, etc., right? And they use that sometimes against, they did use it during the whole operations against Syria, right, to take over Syria, but also, most importantly, they have been training and using for purposes targets in Iran. It's part of the greater Israel plan. This is one of the reasons, again, you don't hear it and you will not hear it in the Western media. This is the reason Iran has been, during that our assault on Iran and Iran defending itself, has been mostly hitting northern Iraq, okay? Because Iran knows that that is Israel satellite, intelligence headquarters outside Israel, military base, official military base with the Kurdish army that serves and works for Israel. They take order from Israel because Israel has also given the Kurds there this promise that as they get to have, Israel gets to have this greater Israel, Kurds will have their Kurdistan country because Israel will make sure that they will connect these chunks from Iran, right? That would be northwest Iran, Turkiye, right? Southern, southeast Turkiye, and Iraq and Syria, where Kurds, mostly Kurdish population, and they would declare it, basically Israel says, we will create Israel called Kurdistan for you, okay? All right, so now what, again, people don't hear has to do with Turkey is implementing Israel's dark operations, right? As the slave or as the proxy nation, also in Libya, also in Somalia. Like Israel doesn't have its own declared official base, right? But Turkey does. Well, that is not really a Turkish base. It is Israeli base in places like Somalia and in Libya, right? Via proxy nation, Turkey, all right? Another good example, we are still on two, right? Operation Gladio B, one, the reason Trump loves Dictator Erdogan, Turkey's Erdogan. Number two, we are on the number two, Israel. I'll give you a very detailed, specific example that is recent, okay? In December 2025, right, this is about 6 months ago, there was this plane crash, Libyan plane crash in Turkey. This was a private plane, and they had high-level military officials from Libya visiting in Ankara for some meetings, right? And they basically had their plane in a specific hangar in capital city, Ankara in Turkey. And this plane, as soon as it took off, within a couple of minutes, 5 minutes, it blew up, right? And to this date, there is no reports on why it happened. Per insistence by certain factions in Libya, because they knew that Turkey was a responsible party. It was not a plane crash by accident. It was a sabotage case, right? They said they wanted to have a third country to go through the black box that they had recovered and do the forensic examination and find out what happened to this plane. Well, initially, Turkey sent this plane with this black box, it's a Turkish military plane, to Germany and asked German intelligence to do it. But Russia had already obtained real-time videos, right, via satellites in Turkey of what really took place. And this was leaked and it's official. This is not some theory that I have come up with, because it was leaked to some of the opposition leaders in Turkey, and those leaders, they made it public. That it shows while the plane was, there in this airport in Ankara, a Mossad plane, okay, identified Mossad plane came and just to landed right next to it. And these operatives went inside that plane, Libyan plane, private plane, while those Libyan officials were in the meeting in Ankara, and they did something. And they have these in videos, okay? Again, that itself, I have done a 1-hour podcast, and this was like in January, February 2026. Germany, before they landed this Turkish military plane in Germany to give them the black box, Germany said, we don't want you to come here, we don't want this black box. Because Russians also let Germans know that they know, because they have, and they know that this has been cooked up, okay, by Israel, Turkey, and the United States. So Germany officially said, we don't want your plane, we don't want this black box. And the only reason they provided was, we don't have expertise to examine this black box. Germany, of all the countries, doesn't have the forensic expertise to investigate this black box, right? So at this point, MI6, through the Foreign Office in England, they said, okay, we'll take it. Well, because it's England, right? We don't mind taking the heat. And that black box, they still haven't issued a report. It has been now almost 7 months. This was done by Turkish operatives, Turkish official intelligence operatives, together with Mossad operatives. And you can go, you can confirm it via official people in Turkey, okay? They leaked all these documents. It was sabotage, this Libyan plane. Why? Because Israel does its operation in Libya via Turkey, and they wanted to eliminate them, okay? This particular faction's military officials. And if you look at the latest recent news, you will see that now Turkey is cooking up, per Israel order, deal with the other side, okay? Because Turkey has switched side in Libya, and that would be Haftar's front, okay? Again, I'm not going to go into detail. I'm just providing examples, okay? This is what? This is fulfilling what Turkey's Erdogan was dictated by Israel and the United States, Donald Trump, okay? All right, so good boy. Now, I'm just right now explaining to you why Donald Trump keeps thanking this dictator Erdogan, okay? Main reason, the main 5 reasons. The other, and I'm going to move to point 3 on Israel is, again, I have exposed this via multiple reports podcast reports via my site at Patreon. But Abraham Accord is not what they say it is about Gaza peace, none of that. Abraham Accord has been concocted as a leadway, right? A transition to what they call, this is Donald Trump and Israel, they call METO, Middle East NATO, or another name is used for it is Arab NATO, okay? This is, again, this is extensive and I have covered it. So with Abraham Accord, they are getting these countries, these Muslim countries, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, etc., to officially and formally recognize Israel, okay? Because unofficially, they're all Israel's puppets, as we saw during this assault on Iran. UAE, Kuwait, they're all Israel's puppets. Erdogan, Turkey is Erdogan. Because the reason they haven't done it officially is because the people there in these countries, including Turkey, 99.9%, they hate Zionist Israel, and they would never tolerate a government or a king or a dictator or a president. That's like pushing it too far with them, of recognizing it officially and formally. With Abraham Accord, right, because the condition for it is they have to recognize officially Israel, they would have say, oh, for this reason we are doing. At the same time, NATO summit is coming up. It's on July 7th, 8th this year. It's less than 3 weeks away. In fact, it's I think 15 days away. Well, yeah, it's on July 7th, 8th, and it's going to happen in Turkey. And you're going to start hearing, because even though it's a NATO summit, right, the major big NATO summit, they have invited all the heads of these countries, Kuwait, most importantly, UAE, Zelensky is going to be there. And they also invited the terrorist Shara of Syria to be the special guest of this participating guest in this NATO summit, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So it is, and you're going to hear announcements on July 7th and 8th, which basically, they're not going to right away call it METO, Middle East NATO, or Arab NATO. They're going to be saying the formation of these forces, Turkey, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, okay? And the pretext that they created, this is why they're prolonging all the stuff with Iran, and this is the reason the United States kind of left them fend for themselves and see the damage that they would have, right? These Arab countries, Gulf nations, during all this theater that we witnessed, to say, look, if you become NATO's Arab arms under Israel, right? Which they are going to omit that part, but Israel is going to be the head of it. United NATO arm, then you will never have to fear situations such as what you saw and experienced with Iran, okay? And tomorrow it may be Russia, or the next day it may be China, okay? That's the context, excuse, justification, pretext, but it's coming up. And why they are doing it in Turkey? How did they decide to have this summit in Turkey in 2026, this July, less than 3 weeks from now? Because Erdogan has been a good puppet, and Erdogan has been implementing the deep states, right? Orders, objectives, dark operations, okay? So I'm telling you why Donald Trump so in love with Turkey's dictator Erdogan, okay? Without having to really delving deep. Again, I'm inviting you to join me at Patreon, because we have already covered a lot there. When you go there and scroll, you will see all these topics being covered for the past 9 months or so. Now, number 3 reason. Donald Trump and Erdogan currently, globally speaking, are the top protectors, shielders of the Epstein's files, truth, and the Epstein's global network. Okay, we already know, everybody knows about Trump and his connections to Epstein, which is via hundreds of people, right? From his attorney, right, to the ambassador he appointed for Turkiye, okay, because it's the only country that can actually accept that, because we saw all these resignations by various officials in Europe whose name came up, right, came out in these files with Epstein's files. They all resigned, right? Not Tom Barrack, and because 80 plus percent 80 plus percent of Epstein's global network's child victims, both child sex trafficking, but also child organ trafficking, okay? The number is over 1,000, and this was exposed in Turkey via one of the MPs who had access to some of the documents in Turkey. 80 plus percent of Epstein's victims were in the Balkans, Kosovo, Bosnia, Albania, right? Parts of Eastern Europe and Turkey. 80 plus percent, thousands of children. And these operations started in 1996, his networks, right? 1996, during the Balkan Wars, most of the activities were in the Balkans. And then in 1999 earthquake in Turkey, 1,000 plus children were abducted, right? Their bodies were never found. So, but even though it includes the Balkans, big chunk, and parts of Eastern Europe, such as Romania, and also big time Turkey, and it's ongoing, and this is totally different case. In Turkey, the headquarters for the operation, money laundering, okay, the private landing, sometimes in U.S. airbase in Turkey. Epstein has had more than 12 landings that they have documented in Turkey, right? Many of them actually were not in the regular airport, was in the U.S. airbase, and it was not with his Lolita plane. Again, that's a different case for another time, right? Now, Turkey has the largest case because there are Mossad operatives, there have been since 1996, with Epstein's networks, right? That they were running two parallel operations: child organ trafficking, okay, and child sex trafficking since 1996. And of all the countries in the world, those who ended up being associated with the Epstein's network, right? And this includes the United States of America. Turkish government is the only government in the world that has declared its Epstein files and documents state secrets, government secrets. I want you to watch a 1-minute clip that I just recently uploaded on YouTube. Let's watch it together. Turkey is the only country, only government that invoked state secrets privilege, the state secrecy. They said the reason we are not going to open Epstein's Turkey file is because they involve the government state secrets. And saying that means what? It means the government is involved. You can't invoke government secrets if the secrets don't involve government. Now you see, just like Mossad is being part of Israel's government, involved, you're looking at Turkey's government directly involved with Epstein's and these Mossad operations over 3 decades. As you just heard, and this is official, this is not something someone alleging, Turkish government, Erdogan's government, is saying none of these files can be investigated or made public because they contain Turkish government secrets. And as you just listened to it, if you don't have government in it, you can't have government secrets, okay? Now, this is the number 3 reason, Epstein. Epstein's network. Epstein is really Mossad network in Turkey. And in my programs and in my exposés and reports, by the way, they were all covered in Albania by the media there with series, pamphletti published. And they actually declared that we are publishing every single article, podcast, everything produced by Sibel Edmonds. And I was on RT Serbia, but this has been blacked out here in the United States. Again, that's a different story for a different time. But network hub for the Balkans and that region, parts of Eastern Europe and Turkey. The hub, the center, the heart of it has been, okay, because I always say Epsteins as in plural. There are other Epsteins in this network. Some are specialized in little boys, age under 12. Some are specialized in boys 12 to 16. Some specialized, such as Epstein, girls 12 to 16, right? Under 18, but after puberty age, okay? Now, one pedophile head is protecting another pedophile government. Pedophile protecting governments, right? Because it's all about the deep state, Israel, the United States, right? Mossad, CIA, doing it, including this child sex trafficking operations via their favorite proxy nation, Turkey. And who is facilitating it? Who is allowing it? Who is protecting it? The deep state's child sex trafficking, pedophilia operation, pedophilic operations is the country's head. And who happens to be this country's head since 2000, right? It is Turkey's dictator, Erdogan. So pedophilia is the number 3 reason. And again, I have covered this. The entire Eastern Europe, Balkan nations, media, mainstream media have covered it. My reports have interviewed me, but still is basically there are crickets here in the United States. Number 4 has to do with cocaine empire of Jared Kushner. Again, this I have reported, I have been interviewed. I put out again this investigative report series starting in November, December 2025. And my series was called The Satan Island Project, November, December 2025, okay? 7-8 months before now the talking has even touching the issue. And Jared Kushner says an islands project with some pedophile UAE partners, pedophile Israeli partners, okay, in Albania, and working with the Albanian mafia, right? So I exposed that in December, January, and it went all the way the series till February. But what still hasn't been touched here in the United States, despite the fact that it's on the record, all my reports, right? Documented stuff. Albanian mafia controls over 90% of the cocaine, right, coming from South America, right? The only country that refused to cooperate with Albanian mafia on cocaine and cocaine route was Venezuela, Maduro. The only country. In fact, Maduro, and we are going back to years back, Maduro declared it, saying he declared a war on Albanian mafia in the region. Okay? So they were butting heads. Jared Kushner and his Israeli partners and some UAE partners, such as Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, right, from the UAE, and DP World that operates ports. They operate ports in Albania, in Turkiye, in Brazil, okay? Pretty much everywhere with the cocaine and child sex trafficking involved, but in Venezuela they couldn't get because Maduro said, I am going to declare war, and he declared war on Albanian mafia. But Albanian mafia works with Jared Kushner and works with Israel, okay? both on cocaine front, but also child trafficking and organ trafficking, which is huge. It is huge. If you look at the same time when Jared Kushner went with his proposals and started trying the whole thing, bribing the mafia narco states head Edi Rama in Albania, which is I have covered it extensively in a series, right? December, January, February, 7, 8 months ago. As he was doing that, if again, this hasn't been exposed in the US, even though I have been exposing, I'm completely shadow banned and censored, but you can go and have it confirmed. The same partners, the pedophile partners from Israel and UAE, and Jared Kushner, okay, he's the heir to Epstein, which is a different story for a different time. They also, okay, for both money laundering and the cocaine operation, Jared Kushner started, this is just like the Breaking Bad series. He and his pedophile partners started this chicken chain in Brazil because Brazil's ports is, again, under Albanian mafias, right? Operations, and they need that for part of the money laundering reason. So go and check and look at the timeline because, again, I have been exposing this for 8 months and complete blackout. And the ones who are now touching, they are fake because they have known about it. Another story for a different time. Okay, so Jared Kushner for Albania is Jared Kushner, pedophile network from Israel, pedophile network from the UAE specifically, okay? At the same time, the same cabal are also involved with the Albanian mafia and cocaine networking, okay? That was a huge reason for Maduro's removal. Yeah, oil played a part in it, but Venezuela's Maduro, he had some of his cocaine stuff, but outside this, Albanian mafia. So because of that, Albanian mafia had 90%. The other 10% was governed, operated by Maduro's Venezuela, okay? And there were a lot of deals with Turkiye. And Turkiye, as has been already established, is the #1 country for money laundering. It used to be UAE for money laundering, but Turkey got the crown on that one. Now it sits to be the #1 for the narcotics money laundering, right? Involving cocaine, South America's cocaine, involving the child sex trafficking, involving the child organ trafficking, those involving the illegal weapon sales. They all pass through Turkey. How do you think these ISIS people are getting all these state-of-the-art weaponry from the United States, US-made weapons, European-made weapons? Turkey is the hub for that as well, including the associated money laundering activities. So, to sum it up, #4 has to do with cocaine and Jared Kushner empire, which is part of Donald Trump's cabal. And Erdogan, Turkey, because of Erdogan, facilitating all this. Turkey is the #1 country. Go and look at it. In the entire region, Europe, the Balkans, Eastern Europe, Middle East, for child sex trafficking and organ trafficking, including child organ trafficking. #1 is the #1. And Turkey has been declared by Interpol and other international law enforcement as the #1 safe haven for all these people who are involved in these operations that I talked about. Child sex trafficking, child organ trafficking, cocaine, heroin, right? Money laundering. Whether they are the most wanted Albanians, okay, or most wanted Israelis, one #1 safe haven for them where they can do anything they want, they won't be touched, they won't be extradited, is Turkey. Who is governing Turkey? Dictator Erdogan. #5. #5, it should be with everything really obvious, right? So I'm not going to really try to break it down into more details and go too deep right now. What do they have in common in terms of style? Okay? Turkey is Erdogan, Dictator Erdogan. The United States, the deep states also, Donald Trump. Their styles are basically the same, right? Corrupt. Both of them are uber corrupt, dictatorial, right? Narcissist. And also, most importantly, when he says his style is my favorite, and I wish there were other leaders who were like him. Well, the style he is describing is Donald Trump's style and fascism, basically, right? Right now, in the United States, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of journalists who have been, without any due process, rounded up and placed in jails, right? In Turkey by Erdogan's government, right? Dictator Erdogan's government. Now, this is the country that Interpol and all the global law enforcement organizations say it's not jailing any of these most wanted murderers, child sex traffickers, organ traffickers. It's the country where political activists go and they are in the dungeon, lifetime in jail. But the notorious criminals, those are the ones who are ripping kids and taking their organs, right? Trafficking organs, trafficking children, trafficking cocaine, poisoning children with cocaine, right? They're untouched. The political party figures, opposition parties, parties opposing to dictator Erdogan, they get to be jailed with no due process, right? And look at the list right now. That list has grown exponentially. And yet, these notorious criminals are protected. This is where they produce criminals. It's narco state and it's also a terrorist state. Various ISIS and partner networks, right? Terrorist organizations, all made by the USA and Israel, right? And NATO. Their headquarters, even Chechen terrorists, they're all in Turkey. ISIS headquarters in Turkey is in Gaziantep and Adana region. That is operating by working directly with the Turkish intelligence and Turkish administration, Erdogan's administration. Okay? Narco state, terrorist state, dictatorial. I mean, what is not there to not love when it comes to Trump, right? By Trump. I mean, no wonder why he's so enamored and in love with dictator Erdogan. I mean, he is like everything Trump wants, everything Trump, Israel, everything the deep state wants in any country's government, right? Edi Rama is governing in Albania, a country of 2.4 million. Turkey and Albania is not a NATO member. Turkey governs 90 plus million people, the government, Erdogan's dictator government, right? And it's a NATO member. And it's the headquarters, proxy nation for all false flag terrorist operations, Operation Gladio B. And it's the headquarters for heroin. It's the hub for heroin coming from Afghanistan and being distributed and sent from Turkey into other places in Europe and also into the United States. And now it's cocaine as well. Look at people trafficking, human trafficking, organ trafficking. Again, you're going to find Turkey on top of that list. And as far as the style is concerned, of course, Donald Trump is in love with Turkey's Erdogan. Again, it ended up being longer than I expected. If you're interested in these topics, please come and join me at my Patreon site by contributing monthly. And I don't run advertisement here. As you see, there are no ads here. I have 0 sponsors. My sponsors are my readers, my listeners, my audience. And right now there is this topic, there are all these, every day I'm receiving dozens and dozens of requests saying, do more YouTube, because I'm not a YouTuber. Okay, I'm still resisting that label. I'm not a YouTuber. I like to operate in my own within my own independent community and not to be dependent on the deep state tentacles such as X, Elon Musk, and YouTube. But if you are part of those people who want more videos like this open to all via YouTube, I'm going to list my link there for Buy Me a Coffee / Sibel Edmonds. Uh, all the contributions or subscription, and you determine the amount uh, coming from Buy Me a Coffee. My site with Buy Me a Coffee supports producing these YouTube videos that are open to all, delving into these topics that nobody is touching as far as I've seen, as far as my audience. They would vouch for it because they go and keep looking for it. And these, you won't find it elsewhere. If you want more YouTube, please subscribe. You determine the amount via buymeacoffee.com Sibel Edmonds. I put the link there. If you want to be part of my amazing community, we have more than 2,000 people there. Come to Patreon and become a member, subscribing member. We have all these exclusive. Every Sunday, I have a live show that goes for 1.5 hours in English. I also have a live show that goes for 1 hour in Turkish. I publish both Turkish podcasts and podcasts in English there. I also have breaking news, as I'm talking about news that you won't ever see on the mainstream or the pseudo alternative or the deep state planted personalities, influencers, talking heads. Again, I hope you will consider supporting me via becoming a member, subscribing member at patreon.com /Sibel Edmonds. Or if you want more videos like this, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. It's there on the top. Click subscribe and also become a member via buymeacoffee.com Sibel Edmonds. Thank you all, and hopefully with your support, I will produce and be with you shortly and we'll connect again. Until then.